Commander Era lay still in the damaged escape pod, her purple blood sticky on her exoskeleton. Warning lights flashed, and the air smelled of burned circuits. She had survived the crash, but barely. 3 cycles had passed since her science vessel had exploded in orbit around this blue planet. 3 cycles alone on a world her people called primitive. She pulled herself upright, wincing as her outer carapace cracked slightly. The translation device around her neck still worked, a small mercy. Through the cracked viewport, she could see Earth's single moon hanging low over strange trees. Her compound eyes adjusted to the darkness, splitting the light into a kaleidoscope of information. Movement caught her attention. Something approached. Ara reached for her scanner, but her hand froze midway. There, illuminated by moonlight, stood a human. The creature was tall and thin with only 2 eyes, such inefficient biology. It wore coverings over its soft skin and carried a small light source. Ara had studied humans from orbit, but seeing one up close was different. More real. The human spotted her craft. It stopped, its mouth forming a small O of surprise. This was not part of Ara's mission parameters. First contact was supposed to happen decades later, after proper preparations. With a painful movement, Ara activated the ship's camouflage system, but it was too late. The human had seen her. It approached cautiously, pointing its light directly at her viewport. "I can see you in there," the human called out, its voice muffled through the hull. Ara calculated her options. Her ship was broken beyond simple repair. She needed help, or she would die here. The Lyrician Collective would never authorize contact with such an undeveloped species, but survival protocols took precedence. Slowly, painfully, she pressed the emergency release. The pod's door slid open with a hiss. The human stepped back, its hand going to its face. "Holy," it said, before falling silent. Ara emerged from the pod, her iridescent exoskeleton reflecting the moonlight. Standing at her full height, she towered over the human by nearly half a meter. Her translator whirred to life. "I mean no harm to your world," she said, the device converting her clicking mandible language into human sounds. The human stood frozen, its breathing rapid. Ara recognized fear, but also curiosity. It was a male, she determined, according to her biological databases. "You speak Korean?" he finally asked. "My device translates into your dominant language," Ara explained. "I am Commander Ara of the Lyrician science vessel Horizon." The human seemed to gather himself. "I'm Ta. Park Ta. I'm an astronomer." He pointed to a structure on the nearby mountain. "That's my observatory." Ta nodded slowly, his expression unreadable to her alien sensibilities. "If you wanted to harm us, I suspect you'd have brought more than a broken ship." Ara felt surprise ripple through her neural network. This calm response was not predicted by Lyrician models of human behavior. Her people's data indicated humans would react with panic or aggression to alien life. "You are not afraid?" she asked. Tai laughed, a short, nervous sound. "I'm terrified, but I've spent my life looking for evidence of life beyond Earth. And here you are." Ara felt her strength fading. The crash had damaged her more than she realized. Her outer limbs trembled slightly. "Are you hurt?" Tai asked, noticing her weakness. "My vessel was destroyed. This escape pod was damaged during entry. I need time to repair my communicator," she explained, leaning against the pod. "Or I will die here." Tai looked at her, then at the sky, then back to her. Something changed in his expression. Decision. Resolution. "Then I suppose you'll need somewhere to stay," Tai replied simply. "You would help me?" Ara asked, genuinely confused. "Your leaders would disapprove. My presence violates your world's development timeline." Tai shrugged. "My government doesn't know you're here, and I live alone. The observatory is remote." He paused. "Can you walk?" Ara tried to step forward but stumbled. Ta moved quickly to support her, then hesitated before touching her exoskeleton. "It's okay," she said. "I won't harm you. "I was more worried about hurting you," he replied, carefully placing his arm under hers. The contact was strange, warm. Lyricians rarely touched one another outside of reproductive cycles, yet this human offered physical support without hesitation. They moved slowly through the forest toward the observatory. The building was small but stood isolated on the mountainside, perfect for hiding an alien visitor. "How long will repairs take?" Ty asked as they approached the door. "With available materials, perhaps 30 of your days." Ta nodded. "A month. We can manage that." Inside, the observatory was simple but functional. A large telescope dominated the main room, surrounded by computers and charts. In a smaller side room was a bed, a small kitchen, and basic living supplies. "It's not much," Ta said, helping her to a chair. "It is adequate," Era replied. She studied him openly now. "You are unusual for your species. The collective data suggests humans would respond with fear and violence." Ta smiled. "Maybe your data needs updating." He busied himself finding medical supplies. "Can these help you heal?" Era examined the primitive bandages and antiseptics. "Perhaps. My biology is self-repairing, but these may speed the process." As Ta helped clean her wounds, Era observed him closely. There was gentleness in his movements, concern in his eyes. These were qualities the collective dismissed as weaknesses, yet they seemed to give this human strength. "Why do you help me?" she finally asked. Ta considered the question. "Because you need help, because you're alone on a strange world, and because meeting you is the most amazing thing that's ever happened to me. Even though I am not human. Especially because you're not human," Tay replied with a small smile. "You're proof that we're not alone in the universe. That changes everything." As the Earth's sun began to rise, painting the observatory with golden light, Era realized something had shifted within her. This human, this supposedly primitive being, had shown her compassion without condition or expectation. "I will try not to disrupt your life," she promised. Tad laughed again, more genuinely this time. "I think that ship has already sailed, Commander Era. But I'm okay with that." For the first time since the crash, Era felt something besides pain and fear. It was an unfamiliar emotion, one not easily translated into Lyrician thought patterns. It might, she considered, be hope. Era stood in front of the small mirror in Ta's bathroom, carefully adjusting the holographic projector he had helped her build from parts of her escape pod. With a soft hum, the device activated, covering her purple exoskeleton with the appearance of human skin. Her 4 arms merged into 2, her compound eyes transformed into simple human ones, and her height reduced by 20 centimeters. She turned her new face from side to side, studying the strange simplicity of human features. "How do I look?" she asked when she emerged from the bathroom. Ty looked up from his computer and stared. For a moment, he seemed unable to speak. "Strange," he finally said. "I can see it's you underneath, but no one else would know. The disguise will only last 4 hours before needing to recharge," Era explained, "but it should be enough for our trip to town." Ta nodded. 2 weeks had passed since he'd found her crashed in the mountains. Her wounds had mostly healed, but the repairs to her communication device required components she couldn't find in the observatory. A trip to the nearby town had become necessary. "Remember," Ta said as they walked down the mountain path, "your name is Anna. You're my cousin visiting from Seoul. Don't speak to too many people." "I have studied your language patterns extensively," Era replied, trying to move her now human mouth correctly. "I will not arouse suspicion." The small town appeared before them after a 30-minute walk. Era had seen it from the mountaintop, but being among humans was different. Smells, sounds, and colors overwhelmed her senses, even through the filter of her disguise. People moved in groups, talking and laughing. Children ran between adults. Music played from shops. It was chaotic in a way Lyrician settlements never were. Era adjusted the holographic disguise as she walked alongside Tai through the small town market. To anyone watching, she appeared human. a necessary deception. Your species values connection, she observed, watching families and friends interact. Lauritians prize individual achievement above all. Ta handed her a fruit. Try this peach, and yes, we're social creatures. Era took the fuzzy fruit, examining it before taking the small bite. Sweetness exploded in her mouth, making her eyes widen. This is pleasant, she said with surprise. Lauritian food is designed for efficiency, not pleasure. Ta smiled. That's sad. Food should bring joy. As they walked, Tai purchased the electronic components they needed. Era observed everything with scientific curiosity. An older woman smiled at her, and without thinking, Era smiled back. Good, Ta whispered. Very human. It felt natural, Era admitted, confused by her own response. They passed a small park where a man played guitar. People sat listening, some with eyes closed, some holding hands. What purpose does this serve? Era asked. Music? It feeds the soul, Tay replied. When Era looked confused, he added, it makes us feel connected to something larger than ourselves. Connected, Era repeated the word. Lauritians believe connection makes you vulnerable. Maybe vulnerability isn't always bad, Ta suggested. On their way back to the observatory, rain began to fall. Era looked up in wonder, feeling water on her holographic face. They hurried under a tree for shelter. Rain interferes with the projector, she warned. Tay removed his jacket and held it over her. Then we'll wait here. They stood close, watching the rain fall around them. Era felt strange, being so near to him. In the 2 weeks since her arrival, Ta had shown her kindness she had never experienced among her own kind. Why do you help me? She asked suddenly. Ta looked surprised. I told you before, you needed help. On my world, we compete for resources. Helping others without benefit is considered inefficient. That sounds lonely, Ta said. Ara had never considered loneliness before. Lauritians were solitary by nature, coming together only for specific purposes. But watching Ta, standing in the rain holding his jacket over her, she understood something was missing in her world. Back at the observatory, they worked together on her communication device. Over weeks, he taught her human concepts: music, art, friendship. She taught him about stars he couldn't see with Earth's telescopes. Something unspoken grew between them, something her training hadn't prepared her for. One evening, Tai played music from small speakers while they worked. Era found herself moving slightly to the rhythm. You're dancing, Tai observed with a smile. Dancing serves no purpose, she replied, but didn't stop. It makes you happy. That's purpose enough. Happy. Another concept Lauritians rarely discussed. Emotions were chemical reactions to be managed, not celebrated. Yet here she was, feeling something warm and unfamiliar growing inside her. 1 month after her crash, Era sat with Tai on the observatory roof, looking at stars. Her disguise was off, allowing her true form to breathe in the night air. That system, she pointed with one of her 4 arms, houses the Lauritian homeworld. It looks so close from here, Ta said. 63 light years. My ship traveled through fold space to reach your solar system. Tai was quiet for a moment. When your communicator is fixed, will they come for you? Era's mandibles clicked softly, a sound of uncertainty her translator didn't convert. Yes, my mission was important. What was your mission? Era hesitated. To study Earth for potential resources. My people expand constantly, seeking new worlds. Tay's expression changed. To colonize. Eventually, when a species is deemed insufficiently advanced, their rights to their world are limited. The silence that followed felt heavy. Ara regretted her honesty, but something about Tai made her want to speak truth. My people believe yours to be lesser beings, she admitted finally. And what do you believe? Tai asked quietly. Ara had no answer. Not anymore. In 1 Earth month, everything she had been taught about humans had been challenged. She had seen art that moved her, heard music that stirred feelings she couldn't name. She had watched Ta work tirelessly to help her, a stranger from another world, without asking for anything in return. I think, she said slowly, that the collective's assessment of Earth is incomplete. Ta looked at her, moonlight reflecting in his eyes. Is that scientists speak for saying you were wrong about us? Era's mandibles clicked in what might have been a laugh. Perhaps. My observations suggest humanity possesses qualities Lyricians have lost. Cooperation, compassion, connection. We have plenty of flaws too, Tai reminded her. Yes, but you try to be better. Lyricians believe we have reached perfection already. They sat quietly, watching the stars. Era felt the communication device in her pocket, now merely repaired. Soon she would need to decide. Call for rescue and report her findings, or protect this world that was changing her understanding of life itself. Tay's hand moved slowly across the roof until his fingers rested near hers. Not touching, but close. An invitation, not a demand. After a moment's hesitation, Era extended one slender purple finger until it touched his hand. The connection was small, but it felt like the beginning of something vast and important. I have much to learn about humans, she said softly. And I have much to learn about Lyricians, Tay replied with a smile. We have time. But as she looked up at her distant home star, Era wondered just how much time they truly had. 2 months had passed since Era crashed on Earth. The small observatory had become something like a home to her. Each morning, she worked with Ta on understanding human culture. Each afternoon, they repaired her communication equipment. Each evening, they sat under the stars and talked about their worlds. Today, Era sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by parts from her escape pod. The repairs were nearly complete. She had been careful to limit the power of her distress beacon, strong enough to reach nearby Lyrician ships if they happened to pass through this system, but not powerful enough to reach her homeworld directly. Tai entered the room with 2 cups of tea, a drink Era had grown fond of despite its lack of nutritional value for her biology. The weather report says clear skies tonight, he said. Perfect for stargazing. Era's mandibles clicked in what Tai now recognized as her version of a smile. I would like that. As she reached for the tea, a sharp beeping sound came from her equipment. Era froze, her compound eyes widening. The detection equipment Ara had assembled from salvaged parts suddenly activated. A scout ship, she whispered. They've received my automatic distress signal. Tay's face fell. They're coming for you. Era rapidly tapped commands into her console, her 4 hands moving with precision. Data scrolled across the screen, information that Tai couldn't read. This is not good, she said. The ship is small, but it appears to be a resource survey vessel, standard procedure for first contact evaluation. I don't understand, Ta said, setting down the cups. Isn't this what you wanted? To be rescued? Era turned to him, her iridescent eyes reflecting the blinking lights of the equipment. You don't understand. My people catalog worlds like yours. Resources, potential colonies. Her 4-fingered hand hovered over the beacon. If they find Earth as it is, they would take it. Ta finished for her, finally understanding. Like they've taken other worlds. Yes, the collective believes advanced civilizations have rights to the resources of less advanced ones. It is our way. Era's voice carried no pride in these words now. They would scan your planet, determine your level of technology, and classify Earth as a potential acquisition. Ta sat heavily in a chair. How long do we have? 3 of your days before they reach orbit, perhaps 4. What will you do? Ta asked. Without hesitation, Era disabled her beacon. I can't let them find this planet. Not yet. Not until your people are ready. Ta stared at her. You're betraying your people. I am. Reconsidering my understanding of advancement, Era replied carefully. The collective measures progress by technology alone, but there are other forms of advancement. She moved to the window, looking at the mountain landscape. In 2 months, I have seen humans create art that would move even the oldest lyrician. I have heard music that speaks without words. I have witnessed kindness without purpose. She turned back to Ta. These are forms of advancement the collective does not recognize. So what happens now? Ta asked. Disabling the beacon will not stop them. They have already locked onto its position. But there are ways to mislead them. Era returned to her equipment, working rapidly. I need to create false readings. Earth appears more hospitable than many worlds. That makes it valuable. But if it seemed hostile to Lyrician biology, you can do that, Tai asked. I can try. I need access to transmitting equipment more powerful than what I have here. Tai thought for a moment. The university where I studied has a radio telescope. My old professor still works there. He might help us, without revealing my nature. I'll think of something, Ta promised. They worked through the night, gathering equipment. By morning, they had loaded Ta's old car with Era's modified transmitters. The holographic disguise was charged and ready. As they drove down the mountain, Era looked back at the observatory that had been her shelter. I have put you in danger, she said softly. If my people discover I have interfered with their survey, it's my planet too, Tay replied. I have as much right to protect it as you do to protect yours. The university was 3 hours away. Era watched the landscape change from mountains to farmland to small cities. Humans everywhere, going about their lives, unaware that their future might depend on what happened in the next few days. Your professor, Era asked, can he be trusted? Ta nodded. Professor Kim has always believed in extraterrestrial life. He was ridiculed for it, but he's a good man. They arrived at the university by mid-afternoon. Professor Kim was an elderly man with kind eyes and a skeptical expression when Tai introduced Anna as a colleague working on atmospheric interference patterns. And you need the radio telescope for this, he asked doubtfully. Just for a few hours, Ta promised. It's important. The professor studied them both, then surprisingly nodded. Very well, but I stay with you. In the control room of the radio telescope, Era carefully connected her equipment while maintaining her holographic disguise. The professor watched with growing curiosity. That technology isn't standard, he observed. Tay and Era exchanged glances. Professor, Ta said slowly, what I'm about to tell you will sound impossible. Young man, I'm 83 years old. Very little sounds impossible anymore. And so they told him. Not everything, but enough. To their surprise, Professor Kim listened calmly, asking occasional questions that showed he believed them. I always knew I would be proven right, he said simply. How can I help? With the professor's assistance, they calibrated the radio telescope to broadcast Era's modified data directly at the approaching scout ship. False atmospheric readings, misleading biological scans, and signals suggesting dangerous radiation levels for Lyrician physiology. Will they believe it? The professor asked. Scout ships don't typically do in-depth analysis, Era explained. They relay findings to the collective for evaluation. By the time they realize the deception, the initial classification of Earth will be complete. Night fell as they worked. Through the observatory windows, Era could see stars appearing. Somewhere up there, her people were approaching, unaware that one of their own was now working against them. It's done, she finally said, disconnecting her equipment. Now we wait. They returned to the mountain observatory the next day. The scout ship would arrive in less than 48 hours. Era grew quieter as time passed. Her compound eyes often turned to the sky. That night, with stars reflecting in her iridescent eyes, Era turned to Ta. Will you leave me, human, now that you know what I've done? The question hung in the air between them. Era had betrayed her mission, her people. Everything she had been taught to believe was right. She had chosen Earth, chosen him, over her duty. The realization both terrified and liberated her. Ta looked at her for a long moment. seeing not the alien carapace or the compound eyes, but the being who had shown more humanity than many humans he knew. "I understand why you asked that," he said finally, "but I think you already know the answer." He reached out slowly and took one of her 4 hands in his. The touch was gentle, warm against her cool exoskeleton. "We face this together," he promised. "Whatever comes next." Era's mandibles clicked softly, a sound Ta now recognized as emotion too complex for her translator to capture. Above them, invisible in the night sky, the scout ship drew closer to Earth, carrying with it a future neither of them could predict. Era stood motionless beneath the stars, waiting for Ta's response. The night air felt cool against her exoskeleton. She had betrayed her mission, her people, everything she once believed in. Now she waited to learn as she stood alone. "Leave you?" Ta's expression softened. "I would follow you to the stars if I could." His answer silenced her. Among her people, such attachment was considered weakness. Yet here, faced with his quiet certainty, she recognized its profound strength. "You would risk yourself for me?" Era asked, her translator struggling to convey the complex emotions in her clicking speech. "You risked everything for my world," Ta replied simply. "How could I do any less for you?" Era's compound eyes reflected the moonlight as she processed his words. Nothing in her training had prepared her for this human capacity for loyalty without logical benefit. "The scout ship will arrive tomorrow," she said. "We must prepare." Ta nodded. "I've been thinking about that. We need help. More humans. That increases our risk. It also increases our chances." Ta countered. "I know people we can trust." By morning, Ta had made several calls. Professor Kim arrived first, carrying equipment from the university. Then came Min, Ta's childhood friend who worked as a park ranger. Last was Hana, a doctor Ta had dated years before. Each reacted differently to Era's true form. Professor Kim studied her with scientific fascination. Min stepped back in shock but recovered quickly. Hana simply nodded and asked if Era's biology needed any special medical attention. "So an alien ship is coming," Min summarized after Tai explained everything. "And we need to convince them Earth isn't worth their trouble." "Correct," Era said. "The collective seeks worlds with specific resources. If Earth appears hostile to Larishan biology or lacking in valuable materials, they will classify it as low priority." Professor Kim spread maps across the table. "My equipment detected the ship entering orbit an hour ago. Based on standard landing patterns," Era described, "they'll likely touch down here." He pointed to a clearing in the forest, 10 kilometers from the observatory. "That's in my jurisdiction," Min said. "I can close the area, claim it's for wildlife protection." "What do we tell anyone who sees the ship?" Hannah asked. "Weather balloon," Ta and the professor said simultaneously, then smiled at the shared joke. They worked through the day, preparing. Era modified equipment to create false environmental readings. The professor programmed disruption patterns to interfere with Larishan scanners. Min mapped escape routes through the forest. Hannah prepared medical supplies, just in case. As sunset approached, Era's detection equipment picked up the landing sequence. "They're coming down," she announced. 3 Larishans aboard. Standard scout crew. Ta looked at the others. Last chance to back out. No one moved. "Then let's go welcome our visitors," he said with a confidence he didn't entirely feel. They reached the clearing as darkness fell. Todd parked his car on a service road, and they continued on foot. Through the trees, they saw it. A sleek silver craft about 20 meters long, glowing faintly in the moonlight. "It's beautiful," Hannah whispered. "It's armed," Era corrected quietly. They positioned themselves according to plan. Min and Hannah would remain hidden with monitoring equipment. The professor would operate the disruption devices from a safe distance. Ta insisted on staying with Era as she approached the ship. "They won't harm me," Era told him. "I'm still a commander of the collective. I'm not letting you face them alone," Ta replied, his tone making it clear the matter wasn't open for discussion. A doorway appeared in the ship's smooth hull. 3 tall figures emerged, their exoskeletons darker and more heavily armored than Era's scientist carapace. They carried equipment Tai recognized as weapons. Era stepped forward into the clearing, standing tall and official. "Scout vessel, this is Commander Era of Science Vessel Horizon. I acknowledge your response to my distress signal." The tallest Lyrishan approached. "Commander Era, I am Captain Jin of Scout Vessel Seeker. We detected your beacon but lost signal." "Explain." "Mine equipment was damaged in the crash," Era replied evenly. "The signal degraded." Jin's compound eyes studied her. "Why did you not attempt repair? Our records show you survived the crash by at least 60 cycles. I sustained injuries. Recovery was slow." Era gestured to the environment around them. "Additionally, this planet's conditions complicated repairs." Captain Jin activated a scanning device. "Our preliminary orbital analysis contradicts information in your initial reports. The atmosphere registers as breathable, not toxic as you claimed." Behind a nearby tree, Professor Kim activated his disruption device. The scanner in Jin's hand flickered. "The atmosphere affects our instruments," she replied steadily, feeling Ta's presence behind her. "This world offers little value to the collective." Jin noticed Ta then, compound eyes widening. "You revealed yourself to a native species. This violates protocol. The human discovered my crash site. I was unable to conceal my presence," Era explained. "I have since studied their species. They are primitive but not hostile." The other 2 scouts had begun setting up larger scanning equipment. One called out, "Captain, readings show high radiation levels in surrounding area, consistent with Commander Era's report." Tai stepped forward. "My people don't want trouble. We know you're just doing your job." Jin turned to Era. "It speaks our language." "I provided basic translation," Era said. "The human assisted with my survival." Jin studied her with too many eyes. "You've changed, Commander." Era stood taller. "Perhaps I've learned." The scouts continued their survey for 2 hours. Every time their equipment began to show Earth's true readings, the professor's devices would create interference. Hana and Min moved silently through the forest, adjusting the disruptors as needed. Finally, Jin approached Era again. "Our findings match your reports. This world has limited resource potential and presents biological hazards to Lyrishan physiology." Relief washed through Era, though she kept her posture rigid and professional. "I recommend classification as priority level 4. Observation only, no colonization potential." Jin looked at Tai, then back to Era. "The native seems unusually comfortable with your presence." "I have found humans adaptable," Era replied carefully. "Too adaptable, perhaps," Jin said. "Your behavior concerns me, Commander. Your connection with this native seems inappropriate." Tai stepped forward. "With respect, Captain, Commander Era has honored your protocols while surviving in a hostile environment. She's protected your presence here and maintained scientific objectivity." Jin's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of surprise Ta couldn't interpret, but Era recognized immediately. "It defends you," Jin said to Era. "Fascinating. Humans value cooperation," Era explained, "a trait worth studying further." Jin considered this. "Perhaps. Our mission here is complete. We will transport you to the nearest outpost for debriefing." This was the moment Era had dreaded. Leaving Earth meant leaving Ta. Staying meant certain punishment from the collective. "I request permission to remain and continue my research," Era said formally. "My experience with this species provides unique insight. The collective would benefit from extended observation." Jin's compound eyes narrowed. "Request denied. Your behavior shows signs of native contamination. You require evaluation." Ta moved closer to Era, his hand almost touching hers. The gesture wasn't lost on Jin. "As I suspected," the captain said, "you formed an attachment. This is precisely why we have protocols." "Captain," one of the other scouts called. We're detecting approaching vehicles. Multiple humans. Jin turned sharply. Prepare for departure. Commander Era, you will accompany us. And if I refuse? Era asked quietly. Then you choose exile, Jin replied. The collective will disavow you. You will never return home. The words hung in the air between them. Era felt Ta's presence beside her, solid and unwavering. She thought of her homeworld, of the position she had worked centuries to achieve. She thought of the simple joy of watching Earth's sunrise with Ta. I need to gather my research data, Era said finally. Jin nodded. You have until morning. We depart at first light. As the scouts returned to their ship, Ta and Ara walked back to where the others waited. The night sky stretched above them, filled with stars, some belonging to her, some to him. Will you go with them? Ta asked quietly. Ara looked up at the stars, then at Ta's face. The choice is not simple. It never is, he replied, when it matters. They walked in silence through the dark forest, the weight of galaxies between them, and the dawn coming too quickly. Morning came too quickly. The forest clearing glowed with soft light as the sun rose. Captain Jin and the two scout officers stood by their ship, waiting. Era approached with Ta beside her. Behind them, Professor Kim, Min, and Hana watched from the edge of the trees. Have you gathered your research? Jin asked. Ara handed over a small data crystal. My observations of this world and its dominant species. Jin accepted it, compound eyes studying her. And your decision, Commander. Will you return to the collective? Era stood tall, her iridescent exoskeleton catching the morning light. I request permission to remain as an observation officer. Denied, Jin said immediately. Your behavior indicates compromised judgment. The attachment you formed with this native is inappropriate. Perhaps, Era replied, or perhaps it indicates a broader understanding of advancement than the collective currently recognizes. Jin's mandibles clicked in disapproval. You speak dangerously, Commander. I speak truthfully, Era countered. The collective measures progress by technology alone, but there are forms of advancement we have overlooked. She gestured to Tai and the humans watching from the forest edge. These beings create art that stirs emotion across species barriers. They form bonds that transcend logical benefit. They help strangers without expectation of return. Primitive emotional responses, Jin dismissed, or sophisticated social adaptations we have lost, Era suggested. Captain, in my time here, I have learned that connection is not weakness. It is strength of a different kind. Jin studied her for a long moment. Your contamination is worse than I feared. Board the ship, Commander. That is an order. Era straightened to her full height. I respectfully decline. The other scout officers moved forward, hands on their weapons. Jin raised a limb to stop them. You understand the consequences. You will be exiled, cut off from the collective. Your centuries of service, your achievements, all will be erased. I understand, Era said quietly. Jin's compound eyes narrowed. Why? Why throw away everything for these primitives? Era looked at Ta, then back to Jin. Because they have shown me that no species has all the answers. There is wisdom even in primitives, Captain. Wisdom the collective could benefit from. Jin considered this. You truly believe these humans have value beyond resources? I do, Era said firmly. And I believe that one day, the collective will recognize this too. After a long silence, Jin nodded once. Your exile is confirmed, Commander Era. You are no longer of the collective. Era felt a strange mixture of loss and freedom. I accept this judgment. Jin turned to board the ship, then paused. Our report will classify this planet as Priority 4, as you recommended. Observation only. No immediate resource value. Thank you, Captain, Era said, surprised by this small mercy. Do not thank me, Jin replied. Your data was compelling, and perhaps your observations warrant further study. With that cryptic statement, Jin boarded the ship. Tay and Ara stepped back as the engines activated. Wind whipped around them as the vessel rose silently into the morning sky, becoming a silver dot that vanished into the clouds. The scout ship departed, but Ara remained. "You could have gone home," Ta said, watching the stars where the ship had vanished. "I believe I can serve better as a bridge between our worlds," she replied. "Your people will reach the stars soon. They should have a friend waiting." Professor Kim approached them. "What happens now?" "Now," Era said, turning from the sky to her new friends, "we prepare." In the months that followed, they formed a small group dedicated to preparing humanity for its cosmic future. The professor provided scientific connections. Min helped secure the remote observatory as Era's permanent home. Hannah studied Lauritian biology, learning to treat Era's occasional health issues. Tay and Era worked closely together, their bond growing stronger. He taught her more about human art, music, and literature. She taught him about the wider galaxy, the species that inhabited it, and the complex politics of interstellar relations. "Your people are not ready for full disclosure," Era explained as they created their plan. "But they need preparation. Small steps." Using modified equipment from her escape pod, Era established a secure communication channel that could reach certain members of Lauritian society, younger scientists who might be open to new ideas about interspecies relations. "The collective is not monolithic," she told Ta. "There are those who question our expansion policies. They just lack evidence of alternatives." Together, they established a protocol, a way for humanity to prepare for the wider galaxy. Era transmitted carefully selected information to the younger, more progressive members of her species. As years passed, their influence grew quietly. Professor Kim published theoretical papers on interspecies communication that sparked new fields of study. Hannah's research on comparative biology led to medical breakthroughs. Min established wildlife preserves that would later become landing sites for diplomatic missions. Tay and Era remained at the heart of it all, their relationship defying the boundaries of their different biologies. They found ways to express their connection that honored both their natures. 5 years after the scout ship's departure, humanity's space programs accelerated dramatically. New propulsion theories emerged that bore striking similarities to simplified Lauritian designs. Linguists developed translation algorithms compatible with non-human communication patterns. Earth's nations began working together on space exploration in unprecedented ways, all guided by invisible hands. 10 years passed. Era's exoskeleton had darkened with age, though she remained strong. Ta's hair had begun to show strands of gray. Their work continued. When Earth launched its first faster-than-light probe, a small group gathered at the old observatory to watch the historic broadcast. The probe carried scientific instruments, cultural samples, and messages of peace in multiple languages, including Lauritian. "They'll find it," Era said confidently as they watched the probe disappear into the darkness. "And when they do, they'll understand humanity is ready for contact." "Thanks to you," Ta said, taking her hand. "Thanks to us," she corrected. 3 more years passed before their work bore its final fruit. Era's communication equipment activated one morning with a message she had been waiting for. The collective had intercepted Earth's probe. A diplomatic mission had been authorized. "They're coming," she told Tai, her voice trembling with emotion her translator couldn't fully capture. Official first contact. When the Lauritian diplomatic vessel landed on Earth, it caused a global sensation. Humanity's leaders gathered to welcome the alien delegation. Military forces stood ready, scientists prepared questions, and the world held its breath. But the Lauritians requested 2 specific humans before they would begin formal negotiations: Ta Park and a woman named Anna, who they somehow knew could speak their language. And when the official first contact finally came, the Lauritian ambassador found Tai and Era waiting, the unlikely pair who had proven that connection transcends the boundaries of worlds and species. The ambassador's compound eyes widened at the sight of Era. "Commander, the exile. This is unexpected. Life often is," Era replied calmly. The meeting that followed changed the course of both civilizations. Era revealed her true identity to Earth's leaders, explaining her years of quiet preparation. Rather than anger, she found gratitude. Rather than fear, curiosity. The Lauritian delegation included Captain Jin, now an advisor to the ambassador. Your messages reached receptive minds, Jin told Era privately. Your exile inspired questions about our policies. The data crystal you gave me, it started something. The negotiations lasted weeks. Earth would join the galactic community not as a resource to be exploited, but as a partner with unique perspectives to contribute. Humanity's creativity, adaptability, and capacity for connection were recognized as valuable traits. On the final day of negotiations, Era stood before the Lauritian Council members who had traveled to Earth. Beside her stood Ta, his hand holding one of hers. We are not so different after all, Era told the Lauritian Council, her hand intertwined with Ta's. The council members clicked their mandibles in the Lauritian equivalent of thoughtful consideration. Perhaps, the head counselor finally said, we have something to learn from each other. As the new era of cooperation began, Era and Ta returned to their mountain observatory one night. They sat under the same stars where their journey had begun 15 years earlier. Did you ever imagine this outcome? Ta asked, his hair now more gray than black. Era's mandibles clicked in gentle amusement. Never. When I crashed here, I saw only a primitive world. I never expected to find a home. And I never expected to fall in love with someone from the stars, Ta replied. Above them, ships from Earth and the collective passed peacefully through the night sky. Two civilizations learning from each other, growing together. Different in form, but perhaps not so different in their capacity to change. Do you remember what you asked me that night? Ta said suddenly. When you disabled your beacon. Yes, Era replied. I asked if you would leave me.